Get away from him, you drunk bastard. The words ripped out of Nora's throat before her brain caught up. 24 years old, broke, bleeding from a wine glass that had just exploded against her cheek. And she was standing between a 6-year-old boy and a billionaire with his fist already cocked back. She didn't see the man in the corner booth rise to his feet. She didn't know his name was Gideon Romano. She didn't know he owned half of Chicago's underworld. She didn't know the silent little boy behind her was his son. And she didn't know that 6 seconds of courage had just signed her name to a war. Before we go another step, if this story grips your heart the way it gripped mine when I first heard it, please subscribe to the channel and stay with me until the very last minute. Because what happens to Nora in the next 2 hours will break you, rebuild you, and remind you why good people still matter in this world. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from tonight, so I can see just how far Nora's story has traveled. Now let's begin. On your knees, sweetheart, right now, or I swear to God I'll make it hurt. Richard Sterling's voice cut through the string quartet like a knife through silk, and every fork in the ambassador room froze midair. Nora Whitaker stood 3 feet from him with blood drying on her cheekbone, and she did not move. She did not blink. She did not breathe. Behind her, a 6-year-old boy in a too big blue suit had both hands clamped over his ears, and his small body was shaking so hard the chair underneath him was rattling against the marble floor. I said on your knees. Nora swallowed. Her mouth tasted like pennies. The scratch on her cheek from the last glass Sterling had thrown 20 minutes ago at table 4 had split back open, and she could feel a warm line of blood crawling down toward her jaw. Sir, she said, and her voice came out steadier than she had any right to expect. I'm going to bring you a cup of coffee on the house, and you're going to sit back down. Okay, just sit down. On the house. Richard Sterling laughed. It was the laugh of a man who had never in 62 years of living heard the phrase on the house aimed at him. He was 6'2" and 240 pounds, with silver hair combed back in a tuxedo that cost more than Nora's rent for a year. He was holding a bottle of Macallan 25 in his left hand and an empty highball in his right, and the way he was swaying, Nora knew he was either the drunkest man in the building or pretending to be better than anyone ever had. Honey, he said, I own the house. I own this house. I own your house. I own the block your mama's buried on. Nora's head snapped up. What did you just say to me? You heard me. Something behind her sternum went very cold and very quiet. There were people in Chicago who did not know about her mother. There were people in Chicago who did not know her mother's name. This man at a gala she'd been scheduled on to 48 hours ago somehow did. She filed that away. She did not have time for it now, because Richard Sterling had just turned his head slowly the way a bull turns when it's decided which red cape it's going after, and he was not looking at Nora anymore. He was looking at the little boy. You, Sterling said. Kid, I'm talking to you. The boy didn't move. He couldn't. His hands were still over his ears, and his eyes were squeezed shut, and his lips were moving in a way Nora recognized she had done the same thing at 7 years old the night her father had put his fist through the kitchen wall. He was counting, silently, to keep from crying. Hey, Sterling snapped. I said I'm talking to you. Nora stepped sideways. She did not think about it. Her body simply moved one clean step to the left, and now she was between Sterling and the boy, and her apron was in the boy's small fist. She hadn't realized he'd grabbed it until she felt the tug, and she was looking up into the red-rimmed eyes of a man who weighed twice what she did. Don't, she said. Don't what, honey? Don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Don't come near him. Or what you gonna stop me, you? He looked her up and down and his mouth twisted. What are you 90 pounds soaking wet? You're a waitress. You're nothing. You're the girl who refills my water glass and takes my coat. You don't tell me what to. Then you're about to get stopped by a 90-pound waitress in front of 300 people with their phones out. Your call, sir. The room went quiet. Not all the way. Just enough. Just enough that Nora could hear her own pulse in her ears. The string quartet kept playing, but half the tables had stopped pretending not to watch. A woman at table 6 had her phone out, tilted low screen down, recording. Nora saw it. Sterling saw it. Sterling's jaw worked once, and then Sterling smiled. It was the worst thing Nora had ever seen on a human face. Not because it was cruel, because it was pleased. like he had just been handed something he'd been waiting for. "Okay, sweetheart," he said softly. "Okay, have it your way." He lifted the highball glass. He did not throw it at her. He brought it down hard on the edge of the little boy's table, and it exploded in a spray of crystal, and the boy flinched a full-body jerk, and a piece of glass opened a small red cut on the back of the boy's hand. Not deep, not bad, but blood on a 6-year-old in a tuxedo restaurant on a Saturday night. Nora did not scream. She did not cry. She did something she could not explain later, not to anyone, not even to herself. She reached down, picked up the largest shard of broken crystal off the boy's tablecloth, and held it, not pointed at Sterling, not as a weapon, just held it in her fist so he could see she had it, and she said in a voice she did not recognize as her own, "Take one more step toward this child, and I will cut your face open in front of every camera in this room." Sterling blinked. For the first time all night, Richard Sterling looked surprised. I mean it. You stupid little... Try me, sir. Please, try me." And that was when the man in the corner booth set down his wine glass. Nora didn't see him stand. She only felt it the way you feel a storm front coming in before the rain starts. A shift in air, a drop in temperature. Every head at the 4 nearest tables turned without meaning to toward the far booth by the window. A man who had been sitting in shadow all night got to his feet slowly the way a man gets up who is in no hurry because the world will wait. He was not tall. He was not broad. He was 40, maybe 41, in a charcoal suit that fit him like a second skin. And when he crossed the dining room, he did not walk, he approached. And the 2 bodyguards Nora hadn't noticed all night, the ones who had been sitting at tables 2 and 9, pretending to be diners, stood up in perfect unison and fell in behind him at exactly 3 paces. Sterling saw him coming. All the color went out of Sterling's face. "Gideon," he said. "Gideon, buddy, wait a second, I was just..." "Richard." The man's voice was quiet, almost friendly. That was what made Nora's knees go weak, not the volume, the calm. The way a surgeon's voice is calm before he opens you up. "Richard, you're going to take 3 steps back from the young lady, and you're going to sit down in that chair, and you're going to put both hands flat on the table where I can see them. You have 4 seconds. 1. Gideon, listen. 2. Gideon, please. 3. Sterling sat. He sat so hard the chair squeaked backwards 6 inches across the marble. Both his hands went onto the table, palms down, fingers spread. He was sweating through his tuxedo shirt. Nora could see the dark patches under his arms. A 62-year-old billionaire had just wet himself a little, and she could smell it. The man who was not a man reached down. He plucked the shard of crystal out of Nora's fist gently, the way you take a sharp object away from a child. He set it on the nearest tablecloth. He did not look at Sterling. He looked at the boy. He went down on one knee, right there, in a suit that cost more than Nora's annual salary. On the marble floor in front of 300 witnesses, a grown man put one knee on the ground so he could be eye level with a 6-year-old. "Leo?" The boy lifted his head. "Leo, are you hurt?" The boy looked at the cut on his hand. He looked at the man on one knee in front of him. He did not speak. He did not nod. He lifted his small, wounded hand palm out, and the man lifted his own hand palm out and matched it, palm to palm, father to son, without a word. "Okay, buddy," the man said softly. "Okay. It's okay. I've got you. Daddy's got you." And Nora, standing 2 feet away with blood drying on her cheek and $17 in her checking account, and understood all the way down to her shoelaces exactly what kind of room she had just walked into the middle of. The little boy with the silent gray eyes was this man's son, and this man was the man her landlord crossed himself about. She had read the name on the front page of the Tribune 3 times this year. Reputed organized crime figure, alleged head of the Romano organization, subject of an ongoing federal investigation that has quietly been dropped for reasons the U.S. Attorney's Office declines to discuss. Gideon Romano. She was going to faint. She was absolutely going to faint. She could feel it starting at the edges of her vision, the pinprick tunneling the buzz in her ears, and she locked her knees the way her mother had taught her to lock them when she stood for 12 hours in the hospital cafeteria line, and she did not faint. Gideon Romano stood up. He turned, and for the first time he looked at Nora. His eyes were the color of wet slate, not kind, Not cruel, just attentive the way a hawk is attentive to a field. Miss, yes, your cheek. It's fine. It's not fine. You're bleeding. Sir, I really need to. What's your name? Nora. Nora Whitaker. He said it back to her once, quietly. Nora Whitaker. The way he said it, she had the distinct feeling he was not going to forget it. Not tomorrow, not in 10 years, not ever. Nora, he said, I want you to do 3 things for me. Can you do 3 things? When mine. Walk to the coat check. 2, so give the young man there your name. He will have a car outside within 90 seconds. 3, get in the car. My driver is named Henry. He will take you to a doctor I trust, and then he will take you home. Your shift is over. Your tab is cleared. Your tips for the night will be delivered in cash to your address tomorrow morning. Do you understand what I am telling you? Sir, I can't leave. I'll lose my... Mr. Delaney. The manager Delaney materialized at Gideon's elbow out of thin air the way a man materializes when he's been summoned by a bell only frightened men can hear. Mr. Romano, of course. Nora Whitaker is finishing her shift, paid in full, plus 1 month's severance because she's about to be terminated by your corporate office in the morning, and we both know it. You'll handle that. Of course, Mr. Romano. And the cost of her medical care tonight will be billed to Mr. Sterling's personal account. Yes, sir. Good. Gideon turned back to Nora. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He produced a plain white card, no name, no logo, no address, just a single phone number handwritten in black ink. He held it out. Take this. Sir. Nora, take it. I don't understand. You stood in front of my son, Gideon said very quietly, when nobody else in this room would even look at him. Every person at these 300 tables saw a drunk man terrorize a 6-year-old child, and the only human being in this entire building who moved was a 24-year-old waitress with a cut on her face. So you're going to take this card. And if you are ever afraid, any hour, any day, any reason, you are going to call that number. You don't have to explain. You only have to say where you are. Do you hear me? Nora took the card. Her fingers were numb. Yes, sir. Good. And then Nora would replay this moment in her mind for the rest of her life, Gideon. Romano bent down, scooped the little boy up off the chair, with one arm settled him against his chest, and the boy buried his face in his father's shoulder and did not cry. He just breathed, like he had been holding his breath for a long, long time. Gideon walked out. The 2 bodyguards peeled off behind him. A third man who Nora had not noticed all night appeared from the direction of the kitchen and followed them. Sterling at the table stayed with his palms flat on the tablecloth and did not move a muscle until the front doors had closed behind them. Then Sterling looked up. He looked across the dining room. He looked directly at Nora. And Richard Sterling, 62-year-old billionaire drunk harasser, a man whose face had just been rearranged by a Mafia king in front of 300 witnesses, Richard Sterling smiled at her. Not a drunk smile, not a beaten smile, a satisfied smile. The smile of a man who had just done exactly what he came to do. And for the first time all night, Nora Whitaker felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with the bleeding on her face. She didn't remember walking to the coat check. She remembered the card in her hand. She remembered the boy's small fist still closing over the hem of her apron. A full 90 seconds after Gideon had carried him away, she could feel the ghost of it. And she remembered Delaney's face, the manager, as he took her coat from the hook and helped her into it with shaking hands like she was the dangerous one in the room. Nora, Nora, honey, listen to me. I'm listening. The man in the booth, earlier, the one with the scar. She hadn't noticed. She hadn't noticed a man in a booth with a scar. Her whole night had been Sterling and the boy and the floor. But Delaney's face had gone the color of old paper, and his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't get her second coat button through the hole, and he was whispering now so low she had to lean in. There was a man, third booth from the window, shaved head, scar running from here. Delaney touched the corner of his own mouth, drew a line down to his collarbone. To here, he was sitting alone. He ordered a bottle of Amarone, and he never touched it. He just watched. He watched you, Nora, from the moment you walked in at 6, 4 hours. He watched you for 4 hours. What? And when Mr. Romano left, when Mr. Romano picked up that child and walked out of here, that man stood up, put a $100 bill on the table and followed them out. No coat. He left his coat. Who leaves a coat, Nora? Who leaves a coat on a night like tonight? Nora's mouth had gone dry. Mr. Delaney, who is he? I don't know. I've never seen him before, but Nora, what? When he walked past me on his way out, he said your name. She went still. My name. He said, good night, Nora, just like that, like we were old friends. I've never told him your name. Your name isn't on your apron. Your name isn't on any paperwork, yet I keep out front. But he knew it, Nora. He knew it. And he was smiling. The card was still in her hand. She squeezed it. Mr. Delaney, the car outside, is it really there? It's there. It pulled up before Mr. Romano even stood up from his booth. He had a car waiting for you, Nora, and he called for it the minute Sterling put his hands on your arm. Do you understand what that means? It means he knew this was going to happen. He knew before you knew. Nora looked at the card in her fist. Then she looked out through the gold-leafed front doors of the ambassador room to the long black sedan idling at the curb where a silver-bearded man she had never met was already standing with the back door open and a folded cashmere blanket over his arm, like he'd been told exactly what she might need tonight. She thought about her mother's voice. Baby, you don't take help. You can't pay back. Help you can't pay back isn't a gift. It's a collar. And then she thought about the little boy's hand closed in her apron. A 6-year-old boy who hadn't spoken a word, but had held on to her like she was the last piece of driftwood in an ocean and had lifted his cut hand to match his father's palm to palm, like that was a language the two of them had invented a long time ago. She thought about the smile on Richard Sterling's face after Gideon left. Satisfied, not beaten, satisfied. And she understood without being able to put it into words that something had just happened in the ambassador room tonight that was not about a drunk man and a waitress. Something had been tested. Something had been watched for. Something had been confirmed. And whatever it was, she was now inside it. Mr. Delaney, Nora said quietly. Yes, honey. I'm going to take the car. I think that's wise. And Mr. Delaney. Yes. If that man ever comes back into this restaurant, the one with the scar, you don't tell him a single thing about me. Not where I live. Not what shift I work. Not my last name. Not the color of the coat I was wearing tonight. Nothing. Do you understand? Delaney's eyes filled with something that might have been tears or might just have been the overhead lights. Nora, you're not going to have a shift here anymore. By tomorrow morning, corporate is going to fire you. You know that, right? I know. Okay, honey. Then God bless you. And please, please, whatever that man on the sidewalk gave you, whatever that card is, hold on to it. Don't lose it. Don't throw it away because you're proud. Don't tear it up because your mama raised you not to take help. Just hold on to it, please. Nora buttoned her coat the rest of the way. She walked through the gold leaf doors. The cold hit her face like a slap, and she realized she was shaking, and she did not know if it was the gualo or the blood loss or the adrenaline finally crashing. Henry, the silver-bearded driver, was waiting. He did not say hello. He took her elbow, the way a grandfather takes the elbow of a grandchild at a funeral, and he guided her into the back of the sedan, and he closed the door behind her with a sound like a bank vault. She sat. She was alone. The sedan pulled away from the curb, and as it turned the corner onto Michigan Avenue, Nora turned in her seat and looked back through the rear window at the ambassador room, at the warm gold light spilling out of the doors, at the valets in their red coats, at the line of black cars waiting for people whose lives were about to go on exactly the way they had been before. And standing on the sidewalk across the street under a street lamp, in no coat with both hands in his pockets and a smile on his face, was a man with a shaved head and a scar running from the corner of his mouth down into his collar. He was watching the car. He was watching her. And as the sedan rolled past him, he lifted one hand slowly and he waved, like he was saying goodbye to an old friend, like he would see her again very, very soon. Nora Whitaker pressed the card into her palm until the edges cut her skin. She did not know his name yet. She did not know he had been hired 6 weeks ago. She did not know that the photograph on his phone, the photograph he had shown Richard Sterling in a hotel room in October, the photograph he had circled with a red pen and written one word underneath, was a picture of her walking out of the bodega on her block carrying a plastic bag of groceries with no idea anyone on earth was looking. And the word under the photograph was disposable, Part 2, 1102. Henry, who was that man on the sidewalk? Nora's voice came out thinner than she wanted. The sedan was already 3 blocks from the ambassador room, gliding up Michigan Avenue, in a lane of traffic that somehow seemed to part for it, and she was gripping the cashmere blanket in her lap so hard her knuckles had gone white. The silver-bearded driver's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Miss Whitaker, please. Mr. Romano left instructions. If you asked that specific question, I was to answer honestly. Then answer. His name is Lorenzo Bex, and he should have been on a plane to Milan 6 months ago. Why isn't he? Because Miss Whitaker, he wants something very badly, and tonight is the first night in 3 years he thought he had a chance of getting it. Nora pressed the edge of the white card against her thumb until the paper creased. What does he want? Henry's eyes came back to the road. He wants the little boy, Miss Whitaker. He has wanted that little boy for a very long time. The sedan turned east. Nora did not ask another question. Not because she didn't have them, she had 100, but because her throat had closed and her tongue felt like a stone, and the blood on her cheek had started to itch where it dried. She pressed the folded corner of the blanket against the cut. Henry watched her in the mirror and did not say, I'm sorry, and did not say it's going to be all right, and did not say anything at all, because Henry Nora was beginning to understand was a man who only said the things that were true. The doctor was not in a hospital. The doctor was a woman in her 60s in a brownstone in Lincoln Park in a cardigan and house slippers, who opened the door before Henry had even knocked and said, Get her inside, honey, it's freezing, the way your aunt would say it. Her name was Dr. Ellen Park. She sat Nora down in a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon tea. She threaded a needle. She worked on Nora's cheek with the careful hands of a woman who had somewhere in her past been very good at keeping people from dying. This'll leave a shadow for about 8 weeks, she said. Then nothing. You've got good skin. How do you know, Mr. Romano? Dr. Park paused, needle in the air. He paid for my son's kidney transplant 6 years ago, out of nowhere. My boy was 9. He was going to die on a waiting list, and then one Tuesday afternoon there was a phone call, and by Friday we had a donor. And by the following Tuesday, my son was eating Jell-O in a recovery room at Northwestern. I never met Mr. Romano. I have never in 6 years seen his face. I was told at the time that there was no debt attached, no favor owed, nothing. And then tonight at 10:45 on a Saturday, he called me for the first time and he asked if I could see a young woman in the next 40 minutes. And I drove here in my pajamas and I did not ask questions. It sounds like a leash, doesn't it? Yes, it's not. Dr. Park went back to her stitching. A leash, Nora, is when they come for payment. A leash is when the phone rings at 3 in the morning and a voice says, now you do this for me. In 6 years, Mr. Romano has never called for payment. Not once. And I have 3 friends in this city who got the same kind of phone call he made for my son for their own emergencies, and none of them have ever been called on either. So you can decide for yourself what you think he is. But I'll tell you what I think he is. I think he's a very dangerous man who keeps his word, which is a rarer thing, Nora, than you've been raised to believe. Nora closed her eyes. Am I safe? Dr. Park tied off the last stitch. Tonight, yes. Tomorrow. Honey, I don't know, but I know one thing. Whatever happened in that restaurant tonight, you didn't start it. Somebody sent that man to that table. Somebody picked that night. Somebody picked you. Nora's eyes snapped open. Picked me? Mr. Romano said you stepped in front of his son. He said the man who threw the glass was looking at you when he threw it. Nora, drunk men don't aim. The sedan dropped Nora at her building in Pilsen at 1:30 in the morning. Henry did not pull away until she had climbed 3 flights of stairs, let herself into her apartment, and flicked on her bedroom light. She saw the headlights swing away only after she stood in the window for a full 10 seconds. She sat on the edge of her mattress. She did not take off her coat. She laid the white card on the nightstand next to the framed photograph of her mother in the hospital gown, holding a paper cup of apple juice, the last photograph taken 3 days before the end. She stared at the card. She stared at her mother's face. She stared at the wall. Drunk men don't aim. At 6:15 in the morning, her phone rang. It was not the collections agency. It was Delaney. Nora, I know. I fought for you. I want you to know that. I know, Mr. Delaney. It wasn't Mr. Sterling who made the call. He's not coming in today. He called out. His secretary said he had a, quote, family emergency. It was Halberstam. Corporate. He saw the footage. Nora sat up so fast her vision swam. Footage. A girl at table 6. She filmed the whole thing on her phone. It's on YouTube. 3.1 million views since midnight. They're calling you the angel of the ambassador. There's a hashtag. There's a hashtag, Nora. Mr. Delaney, Honey Halberstam doesn't want an angel serving his canapes. He wants a waitress. Your last check is in the mail. I got you 3 weeks severance, which I had to beg for on my knees, and which came out of my own Christmas bonus. But I did it, and it's done. I am so sorry, Nora. Mr. Delaney, was there anyone else this morning? A long silence. Yes. Who? A gentleman came in at 6:15, 15 minutes after I unlocked. Not a Romano man. I know what Romano men look like. This one was smaller, thinner, foreign accent, Italian maybe. He had a scar. Nora's lungs forgot how to work. From the corner of his mouth to his collar. Yes. How did you, Mr. Delaney, what did he ask? He asked what time you came in on weekdays. He asked if you had a boyfriend. He asked where you took the bus. And when I told him I had no information to share, he smiled at me, Nora. He smiled at me and he said, of course you don't. Forgive the intrusion. And then he walked out. And my hands are still shaking. I am calling you from the walk-in freezer because I do not want to be on the floor. Nora, please go somewhere. Go to your cousin. Go to a friend's. Go anywhere but that apartment. I don't have a cousin, Mr. Delaney. I know, honey, I know. I'm just please. She hung up. She went to the window. Her building faced an alley. Below the alley was empty except for a tabby cat and 2 garbage cans. Across the street, the bodega. On the corner, the laundromat with its half-drawn shades. No car, no man, nothing. Except, and she could not prove this and would never be able to, the shape of the shadow in the doorway of the laundromat was wrong. Shadows don't stand that still. Shadows don't have the outline of a person's shoulders. She stepped back from the window. She called the number on the white card. The phone did not ring even once. Good morning. A woman's voice. Young, calm, alert as a surgeon at 6 in the morning. My name is Nora Whitaker. Yes, Miss Whitaker. We've been expecting you. You have, since 11:47 last night, are you home? Yes. Is the front door of your building locked? I don't know. The front door buzzer is broken. It's been broken for 6 months. Copy. Miss Whitaker, listen to me carefully. Do not go to the window again. Do not answer your phone for anyone except this number. Do not open your apartment door unless you hear 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 knocks. Henry is 9 minutes out. Pack a bag, 1 bag. Medications, toothbrush, 3 changes of clothes, anything that is irreplaceable. Do you understand? Yes, but I have to tell you something first. Tell me. A man approached my manager this morning, foreign accent, scar on his face. He's Lorenzo Bex. Yes, Miss Whitaker, we're aware. He is the reason Henry is 9 minutes out and not 9 hours. Pack the bag. The line went dead. Nora packed in 4 minutes flat. Her mother's photograph, her inhaler, 2 pairs of jeans, a hoodie, underwear, her toothbrush, the framed Polaroid of her mother's headstone, which she did not have yet, but which had been drawn on the back of an envelope 3 months ago because she couldn't afford a real one. The phone charger, the white card, that was everything she owned that mattered, and 24 years on this earth and it fit in a canvas tote bag. She sat on the bag by the front door. She did not turn on any more lights. She counted breaths. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Her mother had taught her that when she was 8, the night her father left for the last time. At 7 minutes into her wait, the phone rang. Not the one in her pocket. The landline, the one in the kitchen, the one she had not used in 2 years because the bill was $17 a month and $17 was half a bag of groceries. She did not pick up. The machine picked up. Her mother's voice came out of the speaker because Nora had never had the heart to re-record the greeting, "Hi, you've reached Ruth and Nora. We can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message." Silence. Then a man's voice, not Italian, not accented, American, Midwestern, pleasant. "Nora, hi, my name doesn't matter. I know you're standing there listening. I just wanted to tell you something. You think the man you're waiting for is going to protect you? He's not. The little boy you helped last night, he's already dead, Nora. He just doesn't know it yet, and neither do you. Click. Dial tone. Nora's legs gave out. She sat down on the hallway floor with her back against the door, and she put both hands over her mouth so she would not scream, and she stayed that way until she heard the 3 knocks and the pause and the 2 knocks. She opened the door. Henry was in the hallway. Miss Whitaker. Henry, someone just called my house phone. He said, I know, we heard it. How could you possibly have... Miss Whitaker, there is a great deal we are going to explain to you, and there is nothing I can explain to you in this hallway. Your bag, let's go. She got into the sedan. Marco was in the front passenger seat this time. Broad, bald Navy windbreaker, 50 years old. A stillness about him that Nora recognized from hospital security guards and combat veterans. He did not turn around. He did not say hello. He simply nodded at her in the mirror once, and then his eyes went back to the sidewalk and to the roof of the bodega, to the windows of the apartments across the street, and they stayed there. Every second, the entire drive. Marco's job, Nora understood with a cold clarity, was to watch for a specific person, and if that person appeared, Marco's job was no longer going to be watching. Henry pulled into traffic. 2 blocks later, he made a left he did not need to make. Then a right, then another left. Someone's behind us. Someone was, not anymore. Henry, that man on the phone. Yes, Miss Whitaker. He knew about Leo. He called him the little boy. He said Leo was already dead. Henry's eyes met hers in the mirror, and for the first time since she had met him, Henry's eyes showed something other than the calm of a man who had seen everything. Miss Whitaker, that phone call was not from Lorenzo Bex. What? Lorenzo Bex works alone. Lorenzo Bex shows up on sidewalks and in restaurants. Lorenzo Bex does not make anonymous phone calls at 7:09 in the morning from a prepaid cell phone at a Shell station in Gary, Indiana, which Miss Whitaker is where the call came from, and which we traced in 4 minutes because that is how long it takes us to trace a call now. Then who? Miss Whitaker, if I knew I would tell you. And I am telling you because Mr. Romano has given me permission to tell you that I do not know. And I have worked for Mr. Romano for 19 years, and there are very few things in 19 years that I have not known. This is one of them, and it is making Mr. Romano extremely uncomfortable, which I will say to you quietly is not a state I have seen him in more than 3 times in my life. The sedan pulled onto the highway. Nora watched the city fall away behind her. She had lived in Chicago her entire life. She had never been north of Evanston. She had never owned a car. She had never stood on the observation deck of the Willis Tower because the elevator ticket was $26, and $26 was 3 days of groceries. And now on a Sunday morning in November, she was in the back of a sedan with a man in the front seat who was there specifically to shoot someone if they came close, and she was being driven to a house she had never seen, to care for a boy she had met once, and somewhere behind her or ahead of her, a man with no accent had told her answering machine that the boy was already dead. She pressed her forehead against the cold window. Henry? Yes, Miss Whitaker. If I say I want to go back, right now, if I say I change my mind, if I say I want to go home and I want to take my chances with the man on the sidewalk and the man on the phone and the man with the scar, will you take me? A long pause. Yes, Miss Whitaker. You would. Mr. Romano gave me specific instructions. If at any point you say the words take me home, I am to turn this car around, drive you to your apartment, put a man on the corner for 72 hours at Mr. Romano's personal expense, and never come looking for you again. That is an absolute order. Nora turned her head. Why? Henry's eyes met hers in the mirror. Because Mr. Romano does not take people who don't want to be taken. That Miss Whitaker is the one thing about him that most people don't understand. Nora looked out the window for a long time. She thought about the boy's cut hand. She thought about his small fist in her apron. She thought about her mother's voice on the answering machine and the stranger's voice that had cut in after it. Keep driving, Henry. Yes, Miss Whitaker. The house was the size of a small hotel. Nora did not look at it. She was not the kind of woman who looked at houses. She was the kind of woman who looked at the person waiting on the steps. The person waiting on the steps was a woman in her 60s in a cream-colored cardigan and pearl earrings. And when the sedan stopped, she came down the steps and opened Nora's door herself before Henry could get around. Nora, honey, I'm Margaret. I run the house. Come inside, you must be frozen. Have you eaten? I know. Of course you haven't. Henry, you tell Mr. Romano I'm feeding her before he does anything. He can wait 10 minutes. You tell him I said so. Henry, for the first time since Nora had met him, almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. Margaret took Nora's hand between both of hers, the way a grandmother takes a hand, and she led her through a front hall the size of a chapel and into a kitchen that was warmer and smaller than Nora had braced for. A round oak table, a blue teapot, a plate of sandwiches under a glass dome. Margaret sat her down. Margaret poured tea. Margaret cut the crust up a chicken salad sandwich. Margaret slid the plate across the table. Nora did not pick it up. Honey, I'm okay. Honey, eat the sandwich. I can't. Nora. Margaret sat down across from her. She put her hand over Nora's on the table. Her palm was warm and dry and smelled faintly of hand cream lavender, the same brand Nora's mother had used, and something in Nora's chest that she had been holding shut for 11 months gave way all at once like a door that had been propped on a pencil. She did not cry. Nora Whitaker did not cry. But her shoulders shook once and Margaret, without comment, reached out and rubbed small circles on her back the way a mother rubs a child who has just thrown up. You ate? No, ma'am. Nah. You slept? No, ma'am. You've been taken care of by another adult in the last year, honey. Nora opened her mouth. She closed it. She shook her head. Oh, baby, Margaret said. Oh, sweet girl, eat the sandwich. Please, for me. Nora ate the sandwich. It was the best thing she had put in her mouth in 3 years. It was chicken and celery and mayonnaise on white bread with the crust cut off. It was what a 7-year-old's mother makes for lunch. And halfway through it, she had to set it down and press the inside of her wrist against her mouth to steady her jaw because she could feel the thing in her chest trying to give way again, and she did not have time for that because somewhere in this house was a little boy who had last night held onto the hem of her apron like it was the only piece of driftwood in an ocean. Where is he, Margaret? In the library. Is he okay? He hasn't slept, honey, not a minute. He's been sitting on the rug with his blocks since 2 in the morning. He won't let me turn the lamp off. He won't eat. He won't talk. Well, he doesn't talk anyway, but he won't even look at me. Take me to him. Eat 3 more bites. Margaret, 3 more bites, honey, and then I take you to him. Nora ate 3 more bites. Leo was on the rug in the library, in the same blue suit pants from the gala, with a gray sweater with a cartoon dinosaur on the chest that he had clearly put on himself because it was on backwards. He was stacking wooden blocks. The tower was 11 blocks high and leaning badly to the right, and every time it wobbled, he reached out with one small hand and steadied it the way a person steadies a thing they are responsible for. He did not look up when Nora came in. Nora went down on her knees on the far side of the rug. She did not cross onto the rug. The rug, she understood, was his. She sat on her heels. She put her palm flat on the wood floor just at the edge of the rug, and she waited. Leo placed a 12th block. The tower swayed. He steadied it. He placed a 13th block. The tower fell. He did not cry. He did not shout. He looked at the pile of fallen blocks for a long second, and then he looked up at Nora, his huge gray eyes finding her across the room, and he lifted his hand, palm out, waiting. Nora lifted her hand. She did not come closer. She matched him across 4 feet of rug, palm to palm, the way they had done it in the restaurant, the way they had done it over his father's shoulder as Gideon carried him out. And then very slowly, so slowly Nora was sure she was imagining it, Leo scooted forward on the rug, 1 inch, then another, then a foot. Then he was sitting in front of her knees, touching her knees, and he picked up her hand in both of his small hands, and he turned it palm up, and he traced 1 finger across her palm in a shape Nora did not recognize. A letter numb, a drawing, a small, careful 6-year-old's drawing on the skin of her palm with his fingertip. A heart. Nora did not cry. She had cried enough today, but her eyes stung and she closed her fingers gently over the invisible drawing and she said very softly, "Thank you, buddy. I'll keep it safe." Leo nodded. He let go of her hand. He crawled into her lap. And a 6-year-old boy who had not been held by a woman in 14 months put his face against Nora Whitaker's collarbone and he fell asleep in under 90 seconds. And Nora sat on the floor of a Mafia King's library holding a sleeping child she had met 12 hours ago. And she did not move for 2 hours because she would have sooner cut off her own arm than wake him. That was how Gideon Romano found them at 10:42 in the morning. He stopped in the doorway. He did not speak. He did not breathe. He stood there in the doorway of his own library, and he looked at his son asleep in the arms of a stranger, and Nora, who met his eyes over the top of Leo's small dark head, saw a grown man's face crack down the middle and reassemble itself in real time. Gideon lifted one hand, palm out, just like his son, just like Leo had taught him maybe a long time ago. Nora, with her one free hand, lifted hers back. And it was in that exact moment, with a little boy asleep on her chest and a Mafia king standing speechless in a doorway, that the phone in Gideon's inside pocket buzzed. He looked down at it. His face did not change, but Nora saw the skin around his jaw go white. "Miss Whitaker." "Mr. Romano, do not move. Do not wake him. Stay exactly where you are. Margaret is going to come and sit with you in 3 minutes, and when she does, you are going to transfer him to her lap, and you are going to follow me into the next room. Do you understand me?" "What happened?" "Lorenzo Bex," Gideon said quietly, "is dead." "What?" "He was found 20 minutes ago in a hotel room in Gary, Indiana, with a single bullet in the back of his head. He was sitting in a chair. His hands were folded in his lap. His passport was on the table, and pinned to the front of his shirt, Miss Whitaker, was a photograph." Nora's arms tightened gently around the sleeping child. "Of what?" Gideon looked at her across the room. "Of you," he said, "walking out of the bodega on your block. Last Tuesday, at 4:17 in the afternoon. And somebody, Miss Whitaker, had drawn a red circle around your face and written one word under it in black marker. And I need you to understand before Margaret comes in here that the word was not a word I was expecting." "What was the word?" Gideon did not blink. "Mother, Part 3, 1107. "Mother!" Nora's voice came out on half a breath. She did not move. She could not move. A 6-year-old boy was asleep on her collarbone, his small fist curled in the collar of her sweater, and she would have sooner stopped her own heart than wake him. "Mr. Romano, I don't have a child. I've never had a child. I can't have. What does that mean?" "Margaret." Margaret appeared in the doorway within 3 seconds, the way she always did, as if summoned by something Nora could not hear. "Yes, sir. Take Leonardo. Cartoons. Whatever he wants. He is not to be alone for a single moment until I tell you otherwise. And Margaret, no staff on that floor except you. Nobody. Not the tutor, not the housekeeper, not the security detail. You." "Yes, sir." Margaret crossed the room. She knelt down slow and careful, the way you approach a sleeping child. She slid her hands under Leo's small bodies and lifted him against her own chest, and Leo, in that half-sleep way children do, made a small sound and tucked his face into Margaret's neck and did not wake up. Nora watched him go. Her arms felt empty in a way she did not have a word for. "Miss Whitaker." "I'm coming." She followed Gideon out of the library, down a hall, through a door, into a smaller room, his study by the look of it, leather chairs and a wall of books, and a single window that faced the back of the property. He closed the door behind her. He did not sit. "Sit, Nora." "I don't want to sit." "Sit." She sat. Gideon remained standing. He went to the window. He did not look out. He put one hand flat against the glass, the way a man tests whether a window is really closed, and he stood there for 3 seconds without speaking. "Mr. Romano, I am not this boy's mother. I know. I don't understand why someone would pin that word to a dead man's chest. I know that too, Miss Whitaker. That is not why I brought you in here." "Then why?" He turned. "Because whoever killed Lorenzo Bex this morning," Gideon said, "also killed my wife." The room went absolutely still. Nora did not breathe. Her hands went cold. Not cool cold, the way hands go when they've touched something metal in winter. "I thought your wife died of cardiac arrest." "Yes, that's what the certificate says. That's what the coroner said. That's what every doctor at Northwestern said. My wife had stage 4 breast cancer. She was 86 pounds. She was on a fentanyl drip. A heart attack was the least surprising thing that could have happened to her. Then, except that 3 days before she died, Miss Whitaker, a woman who had been my wife's private nurse for 9 weeks, handed in her resignation and walked out of this house without saying goodbye to her patient. My wife cried for 6 hours. I did not understand why at the time. I thought it was the morphine. I thought it was the cancer. I thought it was anything. And 2 days later, my wife was dead. Mr. Romano. The nurse's name was listed on the employment paperwork as Catherine Voss, 38 years old, RN out of Rush. Spotless record. I had her background checked twice. Twice, Miss Whitaker, because I check everyone who comes near my family twice, and she came back clean both times. She walked out of this house on a Thursday. My wife died on a Saturday. Leonardo stopped speaking on the Tuesday after the funeral. Nora's hands had gone numb. And what does Catherine Voss have to do with? Catherine Voss never existed, Miss Whitaker. She stared at him. I found out 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. After 14 months of looking, the RN license number she gave us belongs to a woman who died in a car accident in Milwaukee in 2006. The Social Security number traces to a child who died at 2 days old in 1981. The photograph on the driver's license she submitted was run through facial recognition against every database I have access to, and I have access, Miss Whitaker, to databases that technically I should not have access to, and there is no match. Anywhere. She does not exist. She never existed. She was in my house for 9 weeks. She held my wife's hand. She changed my wife's IV bag. She fed my wife ice chips, and she was nobody. Mr. Romano, what does this have to do with Lorenzo? Because the photograph she submitted for her employment file, the fake driver's license, had one real thing on it. The earrings, small gold hoops, not distinctive, not unusual. You could buy them at any jewelry counter in America. Except Miss Whitaker, that 3 weeks ago, a very expensive forensic specialist I hired zoomed in on those earrings, and he isolated the reflection in the gold. And in the reflection, very small, very blurry, but there was the photographer, the person holding the camera that took the license photo. He reached into his jacket. He laid a photograph on the desk between them. Nora leaned forward. It was a reflection in a curve of gold, distorted, warped, but recognizable, the unmistakable curve of a shaved head and a scar running from the corner of a mouth down into a collar. Lorenzo Bex, Nora whispered. Lorenzo Bex, who was supposed to be in Milan, who I had exiled 3 years earlier after I caught him selling my wife's oncology appointment schedule to a man who had been trying to kill me for 12 years, who I had spared, who I had let live because my wife on her worst day asked me to, and who it turns out did not go to Milan, who came back to Chicago, who got into my house under a fake name, as a fake nurse, as a fake woman through another person, and who was in the room, Miss Whitaker, in the room in the 3 days before my wife died. Nora put her hand over her mouth. You think he killed her? I think he facilitated her death. Miss Whitaker. I think Catherine Voss was not Lorenzo, because Lorenzo cannot pass for a woman, but Catherine Voss was Lorenzo's asset. I think Catherine Voss was paid or coerced, or both. And I think she did something to my wife's IV in the last 72 hours, something small enough that a coroner looking at an 86-pound cancer patient would not flag it. And I think the reason Catherine Voss walked out of this house in tears on a Thursday was not because she quit. It was because she had just finished. And I think Lorenzo Bex, who I let live because my wife asked me to, killed my wife anyway the moment she could no longer protect him. Oh my God. And this morning, Miss Whitaker, at 5:47 a.m., Lorenzo Bex was killed in a hotel room in Gary, Indiana by someone who knew exactly where he was hiding, which is something I did not know, and that someone pinned a photograph of you to his chest with the word mother written under it, which means, Miss Whitaker, that somewhere in this city is a person who knows more about what happened in my house 14 months ago than I do, who has been watching you for 6 weeks, who has been watching my son for 14 months, and who just killed the man I was going to interrogate in 6 hours. Nora did not know how long she sat there. She knew her hands were shaking. She knew her cheek throbbed where Dr. Park had stitched it. She knew somewhere in the house above her, a 6-year-old boy was watching cartoons on Margaret's lap, and that same 6-year-old boy had traced a heart on her palm an hour ago. Mr. Romano. Yes. Why mother? Why would somebody write mother under my face? Gideon looked at her for a long time. Miss Whitaker. In the last 14 months, how many women has my son voluntarily allowed to hold him, including his grandmother, his pediatrician, his nanny, his tutors, the 2 child psychologists who have rotated in and out of this house, and Margaret, who changed his diapers when he was 18 months old? I don't know. 0. Oh, Zero, Miss Whitaker. For 14 months. And this morning on a rug in my library, my son crawled into the lap of a woman he has known for less than 16 hours and fell asleep on her chest. And someone in this city, someone with eyes in places I do not know, they have eyes watched that happen and decided within the hour that the word they were going to write on a photograph of you was mother. Which tells me something, Miss Whitaker, that I do not want to know. Which tells me they are not watching my son. They are watching you. They have been watching you for 6 weeks. And whatever they are planning, you are not a waitress to them anymore. You are a role. Nora stood up. She did not know why. Her body just stood up. Mr. Romano? I am going to ask you one question. Yes. If I get in Henry's car right now and I go back to my apartment and I say, take me home the way you told Henry I could, if I walk out of this house and never come back, does that keep Leo safe? Gideon looked at her. For a very long second, he did not speak. No, Miss Whitaker, it does not. Why not? Because whoever is doing this has already decided what Leo is to them. Your leaving does not undo their plan. Your leaving only removes the one person my son has reached for in 14 months. That is all it does. It does not save him. It only makes him face what is coming with no one he trusts. Then I'm not leaving. Miss Whitaker. Mr. Romano, I said I'm not leaving. You asked me to be his companion. I took the job. I'm taking it. And I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to really hear it because I am not going to say it twice. Go ahead. I am not his mother. I know. I am not a replacement for his mother. I am not ever going to be a replacement for his mother. That boy had a mother. Her name was, what was her name? Elena. Her name was Elena. And Elena was his mother, and she is going to be his mother for the rest of his life. And if he lives to be 90 years old, the first person he will want to see when he closes his eyes for the last time is Elena. And I am not ever going to try to be that. Do you understand me? Yes. But what I will be, Mr. Romano, is the woman who stays. I will be the woman who sits on the rug. I will be the woman who turns the lamp on. I will be the woman who says, yes, buddy, when he says my name, and I'm right here when he wakes up in the dark and we can do this tomorrow when he cannot do it today. I will be the steady person. I will not be his mother, and I will not try to be, and I will not let anybody on this earth call me that, not a dead man in Gary, Indiana. Not whoever wrote that word on that photograph, not anybody, because that word does not belong to me. It belongs to a woman who is dead, and I will not steal a dead woman's word. Nora's voice cracked on the last sentence. She did not care. Gideon was staring at her. He was staring at her the way a man stares at something he was not prepared to encounter. Miss Whitaker, Mr. Romano, sit down. I'm not going to... Please, sit down. I need to say something to you, and I would like to say it while you are sitting down. She sat. Gideon did not sit. He walked to the window and he turned his back to her and he spoke to the glass. My wife's last words to me, Miss Whitaker, were, don't let him grow up alone. She said it twice. She said it on Thursday and she said it on Friday, and on Saturday morning, she was dead. I have thought about those 5 words every single day for 14 months. Every day, every hour of every day. I have failed her. I have failed her completely. Leonardo has grown up alone. He has grown up in a house full of people who are paid to be in his life. He has grown up surrounded by adults who love him and whom he will not speak to because the only person who ever cracked that silence was his mother, and his mother is dead. And I have tried everything. I have hired every specialist. I have flown in consultants from Zurich and Tel Aviv. I have done, Miss Whitaker, everything a man with my resources can do, and none of it worked. For 14 months, none of it worked. He turned. His eyes were wet. Nora had never seen a man like Gideon and Romano cry. She was not sure even now that she was seeing it. And then a waitress with a cut on her face, he said, sat on my floor for 2 hours without moving because my son fell asleep on her. And I stood in that doorway for 3 of those minutes before you saw me, Nora. 3 minutes, watching my son breathe against another human being's collarbone for the first time since his mother died. And I thought, Elena, I don't know how, but he is not alone right now. Right now, at this second, he is not alone. Mr. Romano, so whoever wrote that word on that photograph is wrong, Miss Whitaker. You are right and they are wrong. You are not his mother. Elena is his mother. You are something else. You are the woman who stays. And I am asking you not as an employer, not as a man who can pay you, not as a man with resources. I am asking you as a father who has watched his son grow up alone for 14 months. Please stay. The room was very quiet. Nora, who had not cried in 11 months, reached up and wiped her face with the back of her wrist. I told you in the library, I'm not going anywhere. I heard you. I'm asking twice anyway. Because the next 12 hours are going to be difficult, and I needed you to know that you can walk out of this house at any hour, and I needed to ask you out loud to your face as a man to please not. I'm not. Thank you, Nora. You're welcome. He nodded once. He wiped his own face with the back of his hand quickly the way men do when they are not going to admit they were crying. He straightened his shoulders, and he became within 3 seconds the man Nora had watched put Richard Sterling back into a chair with 4 words and a voice. Okay, now we work. Sit down. Here. He pulled a chair up beside his own at the desk. He opened a laptop. He turned it toward her. This is every photograph Lorenzo Bex had on his phone when he died. 43 images, all of them of you. The oldest is dated October 7th. That is 6 weeks ago. The newest is from yesterday morning at 6:42. You leaving the bodega with a carton of milk in a newspaper. Do you remember that morning? Yes. Was anyone with you? Mr. Cho was behind the counter. A woman was buying coffee. I think she had a red coat. Mr. Romano, is she? The woman in the red coat is Margaret's sister-in-law. She was there at my request. She has been very quietly watching you for 12 days since the moment I realized someone else was watching you. Nora's head snapped up. You've been having me watch for 12 days. Yes. Before I ever met you. Yes. Why? Because the Ambassador Room Gala had been moved 3 times in 2 months. Miss Whitaker, and each time it was moved, the waitstaff roster was rearranged. And each time the roster was rearranged, your name stayed on it. Every time. Never moved, never swapped out. And I am a man, Miss Whitaker, who has learned to pay attention to the one thing on a list that never moves. You knew before the gala that somebody wanted me in that room. I knew, Miss Whitaker, that somebody had pinned that gala to one specific waitress, and I did not yet know who or why or what they wanted. And then I walked into that room on Saturday night with my son, and a drunk man threw a glass at you, and you stepped in front of him, and I understood. I understood in the space of about 4 seconds exactly what was being tested. What was being tested? Whether my son could still be reached. Nora stared at him. Tested by who? That is what we are getting to find out tonight, Miss Whitaker, because the person who wrote Mother on your photograph and pinned it to Lorenzo Bex's dead chest is not Richard Sterling. Sterling is a hired drunk. Sterling is a prop. Sterling was sober on Saturday night. He has been sober for 11 years. He drank tonic water at that gala, and he is at this moment in a warehouse in Chicago Heights answering some very detailed questions. No, Miss Whitaker. Sterling was an actor, and whoever directed the scene, whoever wrote the script, is somebody much closer. Closer how? Gideon looked at her. Closer to me, Miss Whitaker. Someone in my orbit. Someone who has been in my house. Someone who had access to the Ambassador Room Gala schedule 9 weeks before it happened. Someone who knew that my son was coming that night because that detail was not a public detail. It was on one calendar, the calendar in this house. Nora's stomach dropped. You think it's someone who works for you? I think it's someone who used to work for me, or someone who still does. And I think we are going to find out within the next 4 hours because I have set a trap tonight, Miss Whitaker, and every person in my orbit who had access to that calendar has been given a slightly different piece of information, and whichever piece shows up in the wrong hands is going to tell me which person leaked it. What piece did you give me? He looked at her for a long second. A false piece, Miss Whitaker. I had to. I apologize. You were given one piece of false information 4 hours ago, and if that piece of information appears anywhere outside this house in the next 12 hours, I will know that the leak is in this room. I needed to rule you out. I did not enjoy it. I needed to do it. Nora opened her mouth closed. It opened it again. What was the piece? I told Margaret in your presence that Leonardo's bedroom is on the 2nd floor east wing. Yeah, it's not. It's on the 3rd floor. He has not slept on the 2nd floor. A single night in 14 months. The second floor east wing is empty. It is wired. It is monitored. And if anyone attempts to enter that wing tonight, Miss Whitaker, we will know within seconds who they are and who sent them. Nora sat back in the chair. You set a trap for me. I set a trap for 11 people, Miss Whitaker. You were one. You were ruled out at 9:17 this morning when you told the woman on the phone about Lorenzo approaching your manager and told her nothing else. You passed. I want you to know that. I want to, you passed. And the other 10, 9 of them are accounted for. One Miss Whitaker is not. Who? Gideon's phone buzzed on the desk. He looked down at it. His face did not change, but the skin around his jaw did the thing Nora had seen it do in the library, the whitening very slightly under the hinge. Mr. Romano. He turned the phone toward her. It was a security camera still, black and white, grainy, taken inside the house. The hallway outside the second floor east wing, the empty wing, the trap. And walking down that hallway at 11:04 p.m. that night, 6 hours ago before Nora had ever set foot in this house, was a woman. A woman in her 60s, in a cream-colored cardigan and pearl earrings. Nora's blood stopped. Margaret. Gideon's voice was very, very quiet. Margaret, he said. Yes, part 41109. That's not possible. Nora's voice came out flat, not a question, a refusal. Mr. Romano, that's no, she just fed me a sandwich. She just carried your son out of a library. She rubbed my back when I was about to cry. That woman has worked in this house for 22 years. You told me that yourself. You said she raised you. You said, I know what I said. Then look at it again. I've looked at it 6 times in the last 90 seconds, Nora. Look at it 7. He looked. He handed her the phone. She enlarged the image with her thumb and forefinger until the woman's face filled the screen, and she stared at it, and she stared at it, and her hands began to shake because it was Margaret. It was absolutely Margaret. The pearl earrings, the cream cardigan with the small pulled thread at the left cuff, Nora had noticed that morning when Margaret poured her tea. The particular way she walked a slight favoring of the right hip from what Margaret had mentioned was an old gardening injury. Margaret, walking alone down the second floor east wing at 11:04 p.m. the night before carrying a small dark object in her right hand. Nora set the phone down. Mr. Romano? Yes. What is she holding? A clipboard by the look of it. A clipboard. Yes, Nora, a clipboard. Something very small, very quiet clicked in the back of Nora's mind. Mr. Romano, when I was in the library this morning with Leo, when Leo crawled into my lap and fell asleep, Margaret was standing in the doorway, right? Yes. Did she have a clipboard? I didn't see. She did. She had one under her arm. I saw it when she came in to take him. A clipboard with a pen clipped to it. Same one, same clipboard. Mr. Romano, what was on that clipboard? Gideon's eyes changed. It was a small change. It was a very small change. It was the change a man's eyes make when he has just realized he has been looking at something the wrong way for a very long time. Miss Whitaker Margaret does not carry a clipboard. Excuse me. I have watched that woman run this house for 22 years. She carries a memo pad in her cardigan pocket. She carries a fountain pen. She does not carry a clipboard. She has never carried a clipboard. There is no clipboard in any room of this house that is hers. She does not use them. Then whose clipboard is it? Gideon picked up the phone. He looked at the image again. He enlarged the small dark object in Margaret's hand. The clipboard had a sheet of paper on it, but the angle was wrong. You could not see what was written on it. Only the clip at the top, a plain metal clip. A clipboard you could buy at any office supply store for $4. Nora. Yes. The tutor who comes for Leo on Mondays and Wednesdays. Her name is Dana. She carries a clipboard. Okay. The child psychologist who came on Tuesdays for 9 months until she was fired in September. Her name was Dr. Claire Fenn. She carried a clipboard. Nora sat very still. Okay. Dr. Claire Fenn has not been in this house in 14 weeks. Her key card was deactivated on September 18th. Her name was removed from the staff roster on September 23rd. The last time she was physically inside this building, by every piece of electronic record I have, was September 15th at 4:52 p.m. So what is Margaret doing with her clipboard? That, Gideon said quietly, is a very good question. He stood up. He walked to the door of the study. He opened it. A man Nora had not seen before, tall, gray-haired in a suit, was standing in the hallway as if he had been waiting. Vincent, sir, bring Margaret to the east parlor. Quietly. Do not frighten her. Do not tell her why. Tell her I want to speak with her about the Thanksgiving menu. Yes, sir. And Vincent. Yes, sir. Two men in the hallway, not in the room, in the hallway, where she cannot see them, but they can reach the room in 3 seconds. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. The door closed. Gideon turned back to Nora. Nora, I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Mr. Romano, I am coming with you. Miss Whitaker. She fed me a sandwich this morning. I know. She rubbed my back. She held my hand. She told me I was safe in this house. And if she is the person who has been Mr. Romano, I need to see her face when you ask her. I need to. Do you understand me? I need to. Gideon looked at her for a long second. Nora Margaret has known Leo since he was 18 months old. If she is what that security footage says she is, and I am not yet willing to say that she is, then you cannot be in that room because Margaret is a woman who can lie to my face. She has lied to my face before about small things. The time Leonardo broke a vase and she took the blame. The time the gardener stole $70 from the petty cash and she replaced it without telling me. She is a woman who will lie to protect people she loves, which means she is also a woman who can lie to protect herself. And I don't want her to have the chance to look at your face, Miss Whitaker, and adjust her lie to it. That is exactly why I should be there. Explain. Because if she is innocent, Mr. Romano, then she is about to be accused of killing your wife. And the woman who fed me a chicken sandwich this morning deserves to have another woman in the room when that happens. And if she is not innocent, then I need to be the one she sees last. Not you, me. Because I am the one she just lied to, and she doesn't know yet that I know. Gideon stared at her. Nora Whitaker, he said slowly, you are a very dangerous woman. I worked at the ambassador room for 3 years, Mr. Romano. You survived that job by reading faces. Let me read hers. He nodded once. Fine, but you do not speak first. You do not speak at all until I look at you. Do you understand? Yes. Then come on. The east parlor was smaller than the library. A round table, 4 chairs, a window that faced the back garden. Gideon sat at the head. Nora sat at his right. Margaret came in 30 seconds later, Vincent behind her, and she did not see Nora at first because Nora had been seated with her back to the door, and Margaret was already smiling and talking. Oh, sir, it's about Thanksgiving. I was just going to come find you about the... She saw Nora. She stopped. She did not stop the way a guilty person stops. She stopped the way a person stops when they see something they are happy about. Her whole face opened. Oh, honey, I didn't know you were joining us. Did you get some rest? Did you eat? I ate, Margaret. Thank you. Nora's voice was steady. She was surprised by that. Margaret took the chair across from her. She was still smiling. She looked between Gideon and Nora. She waited the way an employee waits when she has been called into a room and has not been told why. Gideon folded his hands on the table. Margaret. Yes, sir. I have some camera footage I would like to ask you about. Margaret's face did not change. Of course, sir. From last night at 11:04 p.m. in the hallway outside the second floor east wing, Margaret's face still did not change. And in that moment, in that exact moment, Nora knew. Not because Margaret reacted, because she didn't. An innocent person in a normal household, hearing their employer say, I have camera footage of you at a specific time in a specific hallway, reacts. They furrow their brow. They say, oh, was I? Let me think. They look confused. They are in fact confused because most people cannot immediately remember where they were at 11:04 p.m. on any given night. Margaret did none of those things. Her face stayed perfectly pleasant, perfectly receptive, perfectly still. She had expected this question. She had prepared for this question. She had rehearsed. Oh, of course, sir, Margaret said. Maas Wenden. I checked on the east wing last night before bed. I always do a walkthrough on Saturday nights. You know that. I do know that, Margaret. I've known it for 19 years. But the east wing is empty. It's been empty for 14 months. Nothing in it needs checking. Yes, sir, but I still walk through it. Habit. And the clipboard, Margaret blinked just once. A person who has prepared for a question about a hallway has not always prepared for a question about a clipboard. The what, sir, you were carrying a clipboard. Was I? You were Margaret. It's on the footage. Clipboard, metal clip, sheet of paper. Right hand. You've never carried a clipboard in your life. I have watched you for 19 years. You carry a memo pad and a fountain pen. So I need to ask you, whose clipboard was that? A pause. A very, very small pause. And then Margaret did something Nora did not expect. Margaret began to cry, not dramatically, not with sound, just her eyes filled and one tear moved down her cheek, and she did not reach up to stop it. She sat with her hands folded on the table, the way a schoolgirl sits, and she let it fall. "Oh, sir," she whispered. "Margaret. Sir, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Margaret, I need you to breathe, and I need you to start at the beginning." Margaret breathed. "She came to me 11 months ago, sir, Dr. Fenn. She came to me and she said she was worried about Leo. She said she couldn't get through to him in her sessions. She said she was going to lose him. Sir, those were her exact words. I am going to lose him if I cannot find another way in. And she asked me, sir, if I would just help her. Not with anything clinical, not with medication, just observations. A page a week, what he ate, what he pointed at, what made him smile, what made him flinch. She said she needed my eyes because his eyes were closed to her. She was going to help him, sir. She said she was going to help him. And I thought, what's the harm in a page a week? I have been in this house for 22 years. I would cut off my own arm before I hurt that boy. You know I would. You know I would." Margaret. "I did not know, sir. I did not know what she was doing with it. I swear on my mother's grave I did not know. I was writing observations about a little boy's breakfast habits, and she was using them to, oh God, sir, oh God." "Margaret, stop. Look at me." Margaret looked at him. "When did she stop coming?" "September, sir, the 15th, the day you fired her." "And when did she stop asking you for pages?" A pause, a real one this time. "Sir, Margaret, when did she stop asking you for pages?" "She didn't, sir." Gideon did not move. "Explain." She told me after you fired her that she was still worried about Leo, that she was afraid without her sessions he would deteriorate, that she needed someone on the inside who cared about him to keep watching. And sir, I was afraid. I was afraid he would get worse. I was afraid the new doctor wouldn't know him the way she knew him. So I kept writing the pages. She has a P.O. box in Evanston. I put them in every Tuesday. Just observations. What he ate. Margaret. "Yes, sir." "Does Dr. Fenn know that Leo sleeps on the 3rd floor and not the 2nd? Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, God." Margaret. "Oh, God, sir. Oh, God. Does she know?" No, sir, she does not. Not from me. I wrote the observation about the 2nd floor east wing this morning. On a page in the clipboard. For Tuesday's drop. I wrote what you told me to write. I wrote it because you told me to write it, sir. And I wrote it because Leo has been so much better since last night, since this girl came into the house, and I thought if Dr. Fenn saw improvement, she would stop worrying. She would stop. Margaret stopped. Her face did the thing that faces do when a person who thought she was telling one story realizes mid-sentence that she has been telling a different one for 11 months and did not notice. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, I'm the leak. Oh my God, sir, I'm the leak." "Yes, Margaret, you are. But I didn't know." "I know you didn't know, Margaret." "Sir, I know. I believe you. Look at me, Margaret. Look at me. I believe you. Do you understand? I am not angry at you. I am something else, but I am not angry at you." "Sir." Margaret. "Dr. Fenn was not trying to help my son. Dr. Fenn has been building a case for 11 months to have my son declared legally incompetent before his 7th birthday. And she has been using your observations as the evidentiary spine of that case. She has been taking your letters. Margaret, are you writing these by hand?" Yes, sir." Then she has 12 months of handwritten observations from the head of my household staff, dated and initialed, describing in clinical detail a child who does not speak, does not respond to normal stimulus, does not engage in age-appropriate play, and has failed to recover from his mother's death in any measurable way. that Margaret is going to be Exhibit A in a guardianship petition that is scheduled to be filed in Cook County on Tuesday morning. Margaret's face had gone gray. Sir. And if that petition succeeds, Margaret, if Dr. Fenn walks out of that courtroom with legal guardianship of my son, then my son will be removed from this house and he will be placed in a treatment facility, and I will have standing to object but not to prevent. And the facility, Margaret, will be a facility that Dr. Fenn has a financial interest in, and my son will become a patient there for the rest of his childhood, and I will see him on supervised visits, and the $63 million trust my wife's grandfather set up in 1954 will be administered by Dr. Fenn as the medical co-guardian of a non-communicative minor. For 12 years, Margaret. 12 years. At the end of which my son will be 18, the trust will be gone, and my son, Margaret, will be a young man who has spent his entire childhood in a treatment facility because the woman who raised him wrote it on a piece of paper every Tuesday. Margaret was not crying anymore. Margaret was making a sound. It was not a sound Nora had ever heard a person make in real life. It was a sound like a small animal that had just been stepped on. Margaret. Sir, Margaret, I need you to stop. Stop, Margaret. I need you to listen to me. Margaret stopped. Gideon leaned forward. I believe you did not know. I believe you believed you were helping my son. I believe you have loved that boy since he was 18 months old, and I believe you would die for him today. Do you understand that I believe you? Yes, sir. Good. Now here is what we are going to do. You are going to write one more letter for Dr. Fenn. You are going to write it this afternoon. And in this letter, Margaret, you are going to tell her that my son reacted to a woman at a public gala on Saturday night, a waitress, and that he has not reacted since, and that he remains exactly as she saw him in September, and that in your professional observation as the person who has spent the most time with him, he is not recovering, and the gala incident was a one-time reflex. Do you understand what I am telling you? Sir, Margaret, do you understand what I am telling you? Yes, sir. We are going to give Dr. Fenn exactly what she wants to hear. We are going to let her walk into that courtroom on Tuesday morning, confident that her case is intact. And then Margaret, and this is the part I need you very focused for, when she takes the witness stand and she presents her evidence, my lawyer is going to introduce into the record the 17 photographs a forensic specialist took of Leonardo yesterday, of him smiling, of him handing a block to a woman, of him falling asleep on her chest, and Dr. Fenn's entire case is going to collapse in 90 seconds. Do you understand? Sir, you had cameras on. I had cameras on him every second of yesterday, Margaret. I have had cameras on him every second for 14 months. I know when he sleeps. I know when he eats. I know when he pushes carrots to the edge of his plate. I love my son, Margaret. I do not love him quietly. Margaret put her face in her hands. Oh, sir. Now, the letter. You will write it today. You will date it yesterday. You will drop it at the P.O. box on Tuesday morning as usual. You will not tell anyone. You will not call Dr. Fenn. You will not warn her. You will not try to fix this yourself. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Margaret. Yes, sir. If you had come to me 6 months ago, when she asked you to keep writing, if you had come to me 6 weeks ago, I could have ended this without ever telling you what she was doing with your pages. Do you understand that you almost destroyed my son? Yes, sir. Do you understand that the reason you did not destroy my son is that a waitress walked into my dining room on Saturday night and reached for him when she had no reason to? Margaret lifted her face. Her eyes found Nora's across the table. She did not try to explain herself. She did not try to apologize. She simply looked at Nora and she said very quietly in a voice that had no air in it, "Thank you." Nora, who had not spoken one word during the entire interview, who had promised Gideon she wouldn't broke her promise. Margaret. Yes, honey. Next time, if you ever in your entire life feel like you are the only person who can save a child, you go to the child's father. You go to the father, Margaret. You don't go to a clipboard. Margaret nodded. She did not speak. She nodded. Gideon stood up. Go upstairs, Margaret. Rest for an hour, then write the letter. Vincent will bring it to me for review. You are not fired, Margaret. Do you hear me? You are not fired. You have worked in this house for 22 years, and you are going to work in this house for 22 more, And when you retire, I am going to give you a pension that lets you go anywhere in the world you have ever wanted to go. But for the next 48 hours, Margaret, you are going to do exactly what I tell you to do. Nod if you understand." Margaret nodded. She stood up. Vincent took her elbow very gently, the way a son takes the elbow of a mother. They left the parlor. The door closed. Nora sat across from Gideon at the round table and did not speak for a long moment. "Mr. Romano." "Yes." "She didn't kill your wife." "No, Nora, she didn't. She was a pawn." "Then who did?" Gideon's phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up. He read the screen. And for the first time since Nora had met him, since the moment he had stood up from the corner booth in the ambassador room, since the moment he had knelt on marble in a $5,000 suit, since the moment he had told her his son had not reached for another human being in 14 months for the first time, Gideon Romano's face did something Nora did not know it could do. It paled. "Mr. Romano," he did not answer. "Mr. Romano, what is it?" He turned the phone around. It was another photograph. Not from a security camera. Not from a dead man's phone. A photograph that had just been texted to Gideon Romano's private number from a blocked sender 30 seconds ago while Margaret was walking up the stairs. It was a photograph of Leo, asleep, in Margaret's lap, taken inside the house, taken from less than 4 feet away, taken today, right now, 2 minutes ago. Margaret was still wearing the cream cardigan, the same pulled thread at the cuff. And across the bottom of the photograph in white letters were 5 words. "The nanny cannot protect him." Gideon stood up so fast his chair hit the floor. "Vincent!" he roared. "Vincent!" Nora was already running. Part 5, 11-12. Leo. Nora hit the stairs at a dead run. She took them 2 at a time tote bag, forgotten the strap of her sweater slipping off one shoulder. Behind her, she heard Gideon shouting orders into his phone lock. "The gate lock, the gate right now, nobody in. Nobody out, seal the 3rd floor." And Vincent's heavy footfalls on the hardwood, somewhere below her and somewhere ahead of her up on the 3rd floor, a woman's voice she did not recognize saying something soft and wrong. She hit the 3rd floor landing. Margaret was standing in the hallway outside Leo's bedroom. Margaret was holding Leo. And in front of Margaret, blocking the hallway, standing perfectly still, perfectly calm, in a navy blouse and a gray skirt and sensible shoes, was a woman Nora had never seen before in her life. 50s, silver hair blunt cut to the jaw, dark eyes, a thin, elegant mouth, a clipboard under one arm. "You must be Nora," the woman said pleasantly. "I've heard so much about you." Nora stopped dead in the hallway. "Who are you?" "Dr. Claire Fenn, Leo's treating physician. I let myself in through the kitchen. Margaret, dear, you really ought to lock that garden door. Anyone could get away from him." "Oh, Nora, please, don't do that thing. Don't do the thing where you stand in front of a child. It was very charming on Saturday night, but we're not in a restaurant now." Margaret's face had gone absolutely white. Her arms were locked around Leo, and Leo was awake and rigid. His small body pressed into her neck, his eyes enormous and fixed on Dr. Fenn, with the exact expression Nora had seen the night of the gala, a 6-year-old boy who had learned a long time ago that if he did not move, sometimes the bad thing would pass over him. "Margaret," Nora's voice came out low, "put him down. Put him down behind you, now." "Oh, don't do that," Dr. Fenn said. "He's comfortable. He's always been comfortable with Margaret. Isn't that right, Leo? Margaret's been your safe person for a long time, longer than anyone else." Leo did not move. "Dr. Fenn," Nora took a step forward. "I don't know how you got in here, but Mr. Romano is 30 seconds behind me, maybe less, and his men are already in this house. So whatever you think you're doing, whatever you're here for, it's already over." "Oh, Nora." Dr. Fenn smiled. It was a real smile. It reached her eyes. That was the horror of it. "Sweetheart, I'm not here to take him. I would never take him. Taking a child it's so crude. It's so messy. Why would I do that when the law is going to hand him to me on Tuesday morning? It's not. Oh, but it is, dear. Margaret has written me the most beautiful letters for 11 months in her own handwriting. Margaret's letters are, legally speaking, a clinical record. Every observation initialed and dated by the head of household staff who has known the minor child since he was 18 months old. It's the cleanest evidence I've ever built a case on. You really have no idea how clean it is." Mr. Romano has photographs of Leo from yesterday, smiling, eating, sleeping on me. Yes. Mr. Romano's security footage showing a child responding to a single stranger in a single 24-hour window after 14 months of clinically documented catatonic mourning. Yes, Nora, I've thought about that. You know what that will look like to a judge? Like he's getting better. Like a final desperate performance by a father who will do anything dear to hold on to a child the child's own doctor has diagnosed in writing as non-communicative. Judges see this, Nora. Parents fake recovery all the time. A little coaching, a sympathetic witness, a waitress perhaps with a bruise on her cheek and a good story about a brave moment. It's actually going to help my case. I want to thank you for that. Sincerely. Nora's hands had gone cold. Behind her in the stairwell, she heard Gideon coming. 3 flights away. 2. Dr. Fenn. Yes, dear. Why are you here? Right now. In person. If your case is so clean. Dr. Fenn's smile widened just slightly. Because, Nora, I needed to see you with my own eyes. I needed to see the waitress who cracked the silence. I have spent 11 months building a model of a broken child, and I needed to understand for my own clinical satisfaction what kind of woman walks into a room and in 16 hours undoes the finest work of my career. I wanted to look at you. She tilted her head, and I have. And I want you to know, Nora, that I am genuinely impressed. Step away from the boy. I haven't touched the boy. Step away. Nora, Gideon hit the top of the stairs. He did not run the last 10 feet, Gideon Romano. Nora was learning did not run. He walked. But the way he walked down that hallway, the way his eyes fixed in on Dr. Claire Fenn, was the way a thing walks that has been waiting 14 months to arrive at a specific door. Claire, Gideon, put your hands where I can see them. They're perfectly visible. I'm holding a clipboard. Drop the clipboard. Of course. She dropped it. It hit the hardwood with a plastic clatter. She lifted both hands, palms out, the way a person lifts them in a bank robbery, except she was smiling and she was calm and she was not in a bank. Gideon, darling, before your men get up here, I want to say 2 things to you. You don't get to say anything to me. I think you'll want to hear the first one. I don't. The woman who killed Elena. Gideon stopped. He had been 2 steps from her. He stopped. Keep talking. I know who she was, Gideon, the nurse, Catherine Voss. I know her real name. I know where she is. I know what Lorenzo Bex paid her. I know why she walked out of this house in tears on a Thursday. I have known for 7 months. I have a file, a real one, dates, bank transfers, a sworn affidavit signed by the woman herself in exchange for immunity and relocation. Where? In a safety deposit box, with instructions that it be released in the event of my arrest, my incapacitation, or my death. Gideon, sweetheart, don't touch me. Don't tell your men to touch me. You arrest me, I die, I disappear. That file goes to the FBI, and the woman who killed your wife gets a call from a federal agent before you can get to her. And she's been waiting for that call. Gideon, she's been waiting for 14 months to be protected by the United States government from you. You want that? You want her to die warm in a bed in Oregon under a new name with 2 marshals on her front porch? Or do you want me to give you her address? Silence. In the hallway of a mansion in Lake Forest in front of a 6-year-old boy in his nanny's arms, a woman in a navy blouse had just offered a Mafia king, the one thing in the world he wanted more than air. And Gideon Romano had not moved. Gideon, Dr. Fenn said softly, I am not your enemy. I never was. I am a woman with a professional interest in a child and a reasonable understanding of the law and an inheritance that was going to be misused by a grieving man who cannot see straight. That is all. But I am also a woman who has spent 14 months quietly investigating what happened to your wife, because I knew, Gideon, that it wasn't a heart attack. I knew the moment I saw Leo stop speaking. Children don't stop speaking from a parent dying. They stop speaking from a parent dying in front of them in a way their small body knows was not natural. And I have the file, and I am offering it to you in exchange for one thing. Name it. I walk out of this house right now, today. I never come back. I drop the petition. I tear up the evidence. Margaret's letter's gone, every page of them. You get your son. You keep your son. The trust goes untouched. I disappear to a country without an extradition treaty, which I have already selected, and I live out the rest of my life quietly and we never see each other again. And in exchange, she smiled, I hand you the name and address of the woman who murdered Elena Romano. Tonight, before dinner. You do what you do, Justice Gideon, for your wife, for your son, for yourself. Gideon did not move. For a very long second, he did not move. Nora watched his face. She had seen his face do two things in her life. She had seen it calm and in control in a gilded dining room. She had seen it crack open in the doorway of a library. She had not until this moment seen it do a third thing, which was to consider. And Nora understood with a clarity that made her stomach turn over that Dr. Claire Fenn had played this exactly right. She had read Gideon. She had known the one word that could make a man like Gideon Romano stop walking. And the word was Elena. Mr. Romano, Nora's voice came out softer than she meant. Gideon did not turn his head. Mr. Romano, look at me. He looked at her. Don't. Nora. Don't, Mr. Romano, don't take that deal. Nora, this is not. Mr. Romano, she is lying. Dr. Fenn laughed. Oh, Nora, darling, you know nothing about any of this. You've been in this house for 6 hours. You don't know the players. You don't know the history. You don't know a single wall. Mr. Romano, she is lying. There is no file. There is no nurse. There is no address. She is lying, Mr. Romano, and she is lying because it is the only thing she has left. Nora, Dr. Fenn said, I understand you feel very loyal. It's touching, but you really have to. Mr. Romano, look at her hands. Nora, look at her hands. Gideon looked. Dr. Claire Fenn's hands held up in surrender were absolutely steady. Not a tremor, not a shake. Mr. Romano, Nora said quietly, a woman who has a file in a safety deposit box with a dead man's hired killer's name in it and who is offering it to a mafia king in a hallway with no witnesses does not have steady hands. She has shaking hands, or she has hands that are pretending to be steady. Her hands are too steady, Mr. Romano. She has been rehearsing this speech for weeks. She has been waiting to say it, and she is lying. Oh, Nora, you don't. And if I'm wrong, Mr. Romano, if I'm wrong, then you can check her safety deposit box. You can check her records. You can check every bank in North America, because you have the money to. And if the file is there, really there, then Dr. Fenn will have lost nothing by waiting 1 extra hour. And if the file is not there, Mr. Romano, if she is lying to you right now in this hallway, then she was going to take that deal, walk out of this house, get on a plane and disappear. And the last thing you would ever remember of her is the moment she made you doubt what you already knew. Gideon looked at Nora. Then he looked at Dr. Fenn and Dr. Fenn's hands. Dr. Fenn's hands, which had been perfectly steady for the last 90 seconds, trembled. Just once. Just at the fingertips. It was a tremor so small Nora almost missed it. Gideon did not miss it. Vincent appeared at the top of the stairs with 2 other men. Sir, Dr. Fenn is not leaving this house. Put her in the blue room, chair. No phone, no clipboard. 2 men on her at all times. I will have answers about her alleged file by tomorrow morning. Until I do, she is a guest, not a prisoner. But she is a guest in the blue room. Am I understood? Yes, sir. Margaret, sir. Give Leo to Nora. Margaret, who had not moved a muscle in 4 minutes, turned. She bent. She whispered something in Leo's ear. And Leo, small, rigid, gray-eyed Leo, unwrapped his arms from Margaret's neck and leaned, stretching across 3 feet of hallway toward Nora. Nora caught him. He was heavier than he looked. His small hands went into her hair. His face went into her collarbone. And as Vincent took Dr. Claire Fenn by the elbow and led her unresisting to the guest wing, as Gideon spoke low into his phone to a lawyer in a voice Nora could not quite hear, Leo lifted his head just a little and he spoke, out loud, into the hallway, for the first time in 14 months. That's the lady, he said. Nora froze. What, buddy? That's the lady who was in the room. Gideon lowered the phone from his ear. What room, Leo? Leo did not look at his father. Leo looked at Nora, and only at Nora the way a child looks at the only safe door in a house on fire. The room where Mama stopped. Silence. Total, complete. Nora could hear the heating system clicking on in the walls. The lady with the clipboard, Leo said. She was there. Mama was sleeping. The nurse lady was there. And the clipboard lady was there. And the nurse lady put a thing in Mama's arm. And the clipboard lady watched. And then Mama stopped. And then the clipboard lady said, "Oh no," and she was smiling when she said it. And then she left. And then I sat with Mama for a long time. And then Margaret came. Gideon did not speak. He could not. A grown man was standing in a hallway listening to his 6-year-old son describe in order the murder of his wife. And he could not speak. Leo. Nora's voice was very soft. Leo, buddy, why didn't you tell anyone? Because why? Leo's small face turned slowly against her neck. Because the clipboard lady said if I told, she would come back. Nora closed her eyes. Gideon lifted his phone. His voice when it came back was not a voice Nora had heard yet. It was lower than his regular voice. It was flatter. It was the voice of a man who has just been handed the last piece of a puzzle he has been assembling in the dark for 14 months. Cancel the blue room, sir. Cancel the blue room. Dr. Fenn is not a guest in this house. Dr. Fenn is the woman who stood in my wife's room and watched her die. Dr. Fenn goes downstairs, to the back office, to the chair. Now, and nobody speaks to her. Nobody feeds her. Nobody asks her a single question. I will be there in 15 minutes. Am I understood? Yes, sir. And Vincent? Sir, find Catherine Voss, whatever name she is under, whatever state she is in, find her tonight before dinner. There is no file. There is no affidavit. There is no deal. Find her tonight. Yes, sir. The men moved. Dr. Claire Fenn was led down the stairs. She did not speak. She did not protest. She did not. Nora noticed look back at Leo even once. She was already calculating, already running the next play, already a woman who had stopped being a doctor and was now only a cornered animal in a navy blouse. Gideon stood in the hallway with Nora and his son. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then Gideon reached out slowly, carefully, the way a man reaches for something he has been afraid to touch, and he put his hand on top of his son's small head. Leo. Yeah, Daddy. A sound came out of Gideon Romano's chest. Nora was not going to describe it later, not to anyone, not ever. It was a sound that belonged to Gideon and his son and nobody else. Leo, buddy, you were very brave. Yeah, you were very brave for a long time. I know. I am so proud of you. Okay, I love you. A long pause. Then in a voice so small, Nora almost missed it. I love you too, Daddy. Catherine Voss was found in a townhouse in Bend, Oregon at 11:47 p.m. that night under the name Kate Vernon. She was not taken by Gideon's men. She was handed quietly by Gideon's lawyer to an FBI agent who had been investigating a separate fraud case for 3 years and had been looking for her under a different name the entire time. The 9 federal charges she was indicted on the following Tuesday, including 2 counts of second-degree murder, were the result of a plea deal she did not know she was about to be offered, which required her to testify in exchange for life without parole instead of a death she had almost certainly been promised by the person who hired her. She took the deal. She sang for 11 hours, and a file that was not in a safety deposit box because there had never been one was assembled over 6 weeks from her testimony, from wire transfers, from phone records, and from the confession, Dr. Claire Fenn gave in the back office of Gideon Romano's Lake Forest estate at 2:13 a.m. on Monday morning under conditions that Nora Whitaker did not witness, did not ask about, and did not want to know. Gideon kept his word to his late wife as he had kept it about her brother. Dr. Claire Fenn walked into federal custody at dawn. She lived. She is to Nora's knowledge alive today. Nora did not ask what condition she was in when she was handed over. That was not Nora's business, and it was not going to become her business. That was the arrangement. Margaret stayed. She was not punished. She was not fired. She was told gently by Gideon that she had been manipulated by a professional who had spent 9 months in his house studying exactly how to manipulate her, and that any woman would have fallen for it, and that the measure of a person was not whether they made a mistake, but whether they told the truth when asked. Margaret had told the truth. Margaret stayed. Margaret, when she retired 8 years later, was given a small cottage in County Cork, Ireland, where her grandmother had been born, and a pension that let her live there for the rest of her life. Leo talked. Not all at once, not like a faucet, like a window opening a quarter of an inch at a time. The first full week, he was quiet again. Then he said, "Milk, please," to Margaret. Then he asked Nora on a Tuesday where his red dinosaur sweater had gone. Then he read a picture book out loud at bedtime. By Christmas, he was telling knock-knock jokes that were not funny and laughing at them himself, and it was the most beautiful sound Nora had ever heard in her life. Richard Sterling was given two options in the back office of a warehouse in Chicago Heights, and he took the second one, which involved selling Sterling holdings for 63 cents on the dollar, moving to a small town in New Hampshire, and never in the remaining 20 years of his life returning to the city of Chicago. He kept that promise. He walked a terrier. He went to AA meetings. He died quietly of a stroke in 2043, and Nora Whitaker stayed. She was not asked to. She was not paid to. After the first year, she refused the salary after a while, which caused a 3-month argument in the House that was eventually resolved by Gideon agreeing to put the money into a trust for a scholarship program at a community college in Pilsen, which still awards 12 scholarships a year to the children of restaurant workers, and which is named after Nora's mother. She stayed because Leo reached for her every morning. She stayed because Margaret needed her. She stayed because somewhere in the 6th month of her living in the East Wing of the Romano estate, a man who had once sat in a corner booth of a gilded dining room and watched a waitress refuse to kneel had sat down across from her at a kitchen table and looked at her for a long time without speaking, and then said very quietly, "Nora." "Yes, Mr. Romano." "Gideon." "Gideon. Will you stay even if there is no job?" "Yes." "Will you stay even if I ask you to?" "Yes." "Will you stay even if I—" "Yes, Gideon, whatever the question is, yes." They were married the following spring in the library. Margaret on one side, Henry on the other, Leo in the middle holding the rings and saying "I do" in the wrong place and not being corrected. Nora wore her mother's gold cross. She carried white roses. Her mother's photograph sat on a table by the window in a polished silver frame next to a small gold lamp that stayed on. After the ceremony, Leo tugged on Nora's sleeve. "Mom." He had started calling her that carefully 2 weeks earlier, the way a child tests a word to see if the air still holds it up. "Yeah, buddy. You stayed. I said I would, didn't I?" "Yeah." "Am I going to keep staying?" Leo nodded seriously. "Forever." "Forever." He thought about it for a second. "Mom." "Yes, buddy." "Can I have cake now?" Nora laughed. She put her hand on the back of her son's head, and she pulled him against her hip, and she looked across the library at her husband, at Margaret pressing her apron to her eyes, at Henry pouring champagne for people who had no idea whose house they were in, and she answered him the way her own mother would have answered her. Simply, plainly, without drama, with absolute finality. "Yes, baby, you can have cake now." And he did. A waitress who had $17 in her bank account and a dying mother's debt on a Saturday night in November walked into a gilded dining room and stepped in front of a glass. Because of 6 seconds of courage, a little boy got his voice back. Because of 6 seconds of courage, a mafia king found out who killed his wife. Because of 6 seconds of courage, a woman in a navy blouse who had almost stolen a child's entire life spent the rest of hers in a federal facility in West Virginia, writing letters that no one read. And because of 6 seconds of courage, a girl named Nora Whitaker, who had no next of kin, who had been selected for her disposability, who had been photographed 43 times by a man who had planned to kill her, became the mother of a boy who called her mom, and the wife of a man who kept his word, and the lady of a house where the little gold lamp stayed on every single night for the rest of her life. She kept the shape of who she was, and she kept it to the end.